Okay, hopefully, let me see, do I have everyone here?
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well. How about you?
I am great, thank you. And Judge Jordan, do we have you on?
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. Okay, well, we'll go ahead and get started. I'm Candace Gross, the new Public Information Officer for Mayor Lee Harris with Shelby County Government. I am fairly new in this role. And one thing that I'm most excited about is that I get to work for an organization that takes things like criminal justice reform and serious. I want to thank everybody for being here today to sit in on this panel. We have some amazing panelists. And I just want to say that before we go into this, bail money has hundreds of thousands of people in jail over a long period of time while they await trial. And these are people who are not convicted of a crime yet. And so it's so important that we have this discussion about it because what that does is that it causes people, impacts their livelihood. Some people, while they're waiting for trial and don't have bail money, they're not getting medical attention that they may need. They are not able to report to work. And so we're going to have that discussion today. Before we have that discussion, I'm going to give you both the opportunity to briefly introduce yourself, and then we'll go into this with questions. So we can start with you, Attorney Bell.
First and foremost, is there any way I can see everyone on the screen, or because I can only see you, Candace? I don't know if there's something I'm doing wrong.
Let me see. There we go. Sorry about that. Can you see everybody now?
I see you.
Judge Jordan, do you have your camera?
Okay, I think you have the option. Okay, we're good to go now.
There we go.
Judge, how are you? Sorry about that, Judge. I guess I could have let you answer the question. And so you just want us to talk initially about what, Candace?
Sure, if you can briefly introduce yourselves, and we're going to start with you and then go to Judge Jordan.
Okay, my name is Wesley Bell. I'm currently have the honor of serving as St. Louis County prosecutor in St. Louis County, Missouri. I'm the first African-American to hold this position. I'm a former Ferguson City Councilman from the city many of you have heard of, and I was elected in 2015, about 9 months after Ferguson became Ferguson, and had the opportunity to not only work on, but also help write the Ferguson Consent Decree, bringing community policing and some of the broadest court reforms to not only Ferguson, but to the region. And then obviously last year, I took over, I ran and was elected to this particular position. And I'm sure we'll talk more about that during the panel, but glad to be here. And I appreciate you hosting this event. And these are some good conversations that are much needed across the region and country for that matter.
Okay, Judge Jordan, you can introduce yourself.
All right, my name is Darrell Jordan. One thing that Mr. Bell left out, he went to University of Missouri. I also went to University of Missouri as an undergraduate. So I'm also a fan of Mr. Bell. And to the Shelby County delegation who I met at the NOPCO meeting in Detroit, you all are well represented all the way around from top to bottom. I really appreciated and enjoyed hanging out with the Shelby County people. Bail reform is so important. I took the bench in January of 2017. When I walked in, we were in the middle of a lawsuit. A group from New York, the Civil Rights Corps, had come down and sued all the judges for our unconstitutional bail practices. And so I was on the job about 2 weeks, and we had an injunction hearing in federal court, and I ended up testifying against all my coworkers, all the other judges, exposing essentially our unconstitutional practices, and I immediately made changes. That fight went on for about 2 years. An election happened. All of my colleagues were swept out of office. And then with the new colleagues in place, we changed our system and essentially eliminated money bail in the county courts. And keep in mind, Harris County is larger than 27 states. And so it's had a huge impact on not only Harris County, but other counties throughout Texas and around the country. And so I look forward for the next 23 minutes and talking more about bail reform and all the positive aspects of it.
Thank you. So we'll open up with our first question, and either one of you can answer it. If you can, for those of us who are on who may not know the concept, if you can explain the current bail money concept and how this process works.
So since we're Shelby County, so imagine I call him me and Wesley in University of Memphis, we're students. It's finals week. Wesley has a car and he's poor. I don't have a car. My parents chose not to buy me one and I have money. We go to Walmart. Wesley goes to the right. He's buying some kale and some other healthy food. I go to the left and start looking at video games, and I steal them, put them in my clothes, and then we get to the cash register together. He pays for his stuff and I walk out. We walk out together. In most situations, both of us are going to go to jail under the law of parties. They're going to claim that we knew that what we were doing, it was a conspiracy. We worked together to make it happen. We get down to the local county jail. They give us a bail of $2,000. That means if you have 200, you go home. If you don't, you stay. I have money, so I call my parents and they bail me out. I go home. And Wesley has no money. That means he stays in jail simply because he's poor and his car is impounded. The fees go up on that every day. He has to be in class on Monday to take finals. And if he doesn't get to school, then he flunks out. So court comes on Monday. He tells his court-appointed lawyer, I don't know what Darrell was doing. I was getting kale, and I met him at the cash register. The attorney, his eyes light up, and he says, well, great. We can get your case dismissed, but we're going to need that video. And then Wesley explains, hey, this is finals week. How long does it take to get that video? And they say, oh, it's going to take 4 to 6 weeks. At that point, he has to make a decision. Is he going to sit in jail, let his car stay impounded, increasing in fees $200 a day? Is he going to flunk out of school? Is he going to lose his apartment? Or is he going to plead guilty to a crime he didn't commit just so he can go home that day? So that's the choice that people are having to make every day. Now, meanwhile, I'm guilty. I entered into a pretrial diversionary program last 90 days here in Harris County, and my case gets dismissed. And so basically I walked away with no punishment at all, whereas Wesley, because he was poor, he was punished. And that same example applies no matter what the offense is. It drives me crazy when people say nonviolent offenders. Violent or nonviolent, if bond is set up to allow a person to go home, and the only reason that person stays in jail, it's an unequal system where the poor are penalized. You know, and I did some research on Shelby County and saw that there are people who have been charged with murder who were given a PR bonds. And I understand people go and they get upset, but bail is not meant as punishment. In the court system across America, the rules are you are innocent unless proven guilty. And so if this is not a safety issue, when if the person had $50,000 and $5,000 of that 10%, they go home. Money does not make people safe. And I'll shut up and let Mr. Bell talk.
Judge, you've covered a lot of it. Just to add to that, and so it doesn't surprise me because you're a University of Missouri grad, so obviously you know what you're talking about. But I think that sometimes we do lose sight of the fact that bail is not punishment. As Judge Jordan talked about, that it is just to ensure the defendant's appearance throughout the criminal justice proceedings through trial. That's what it's for. Now, we do have constitutional guidelines that guide us on what we should be factoring in with respect to what kind of bail is set. And those things are pretty straightforward and the primary things that not only judges, but not only in Shelby County and Missouri, but across the country look at. Is this individual a threat to the community? Are they a flight risk? What is the severity of the charges? We look at those things as factors, but far too often in our increasingly incarceral system, we start looking at everything as how do we punish it? We hear someone talking at the movies. The first thing we want to say is, hey, well, maybe they should go to jail. They should be locked up. But what we found is that incarceration does not keep us safer. The facts and research are clear that if anything, it takes us in the opposite direction. When one is, statistics show that when one is incarcerated for just 3 days, it increases the likelihood by 40% that that individual will return on another charge. A jail stay of 5 days increases the likelihood by 50%. And more, what we find is that individuals who have no business being in jail in the first place, maybe mental health care treatment or substance use disorder treatment, what we find is that jail exacerbates those problems, and the individual comes out with a worse problem, be it drugs or mental health, and are more likely to commit even now a violent offense. That cycle of violence starts to ramp up when we start showing people the inside of a jail cell. So I think we have to look at ways that not only follow our constitutional guidelines in the law, but also help us keep our community safe.
Okay. What are some existing alternatives to bail money?
You know, what I strongly advocate for is bail conditions. If you have someone who's on a third DWI in the state of Texas, that's a felony, and that person has a bond, and you say pay $30,000, you go home. Does that stop him from drinking? No. Does that protect the community? No. But traditionally, that's what we've done. I say put an ankle, we call it a scram device that will monitor alcohol intake. You can also put an interlock device on his car. Every time he starts it, he has to blow and see if there's alcohol in his system. Those type of conditions are what will keep people safer. In our business, it's inherent risk. There is nothing 100%. And I tell people, if you believe that, well, let's go take all the people who have broken the law, allegedly, and put them on bail. Let's have them pay a certain amount of money, and then they will be safe, perfect people. That doesn't exist. The same way, if you have a guy or a female who's charged with abusing their spouse, you put them on an ankle monitor, you give them protective zones, stay within 200 feet of this person, their home or their house. And then now they have the technology where you can give the alleged victim a monitor. And if the person gets within that zone, they are alerted and they can reach out to law enforcement. And so what we have to be careful of is not over conditioning, but making sure we provide proper conditions to ensure community safety and the return to court. And there's no research that shows any amount of money accomplishes that goal.
And I would add, some specifics which are similar to what George Jordan talked about. We have here the eHawk system, which monitors cell phones, where you can do 24-hour checks. We have a MacArthur grant that provides defendants with phones who don't have them. There's GPS, and as Judge talked about, sometimes they can be somewhat expensive. Or even more practically, regular bond appearances if you want to keep someone coming into court every week. There's a lot of options that have been proven more effective than just locking someone up. But then from a larger example, or a larger example would just be understanding that when individuals have the services and the support that they need, they are going to show up and they're less likely to reoffend. So for example, locally, we have aggressively expanded our diversion programs. And so we have over 40 partners where we have options, alternatives that we can send people as opposed to incarceration. And I'll give you a perfect example, mental health issues. What we know is when someone has a mental health, are struggling with mental health issues, they are significantly more likely to commit or be accused of an offense. And so the trick bag that many judges, and Judge Jordan can probably speak to this, is that you see someone who has clear mental health issues, and the trick bag is, if I send this person home, they are very likely to come back on another charge. But at the same time, I don't want to lock them up for some nonviolent or low-level offense or something to that effect. And so by expanding the community partners that we have that are offering services free of charge, because many of them have federal funding or private funding to pay for them, we give judges like Judge Jordan other options instead of incarceration. We work with a local group called Places with People, where they give actual treatment. And I think we all know that real treatment, as opposed to incarceration, I'll take treatment 6 days a week, twice on Sunday. But then also a perfect example is the federal district here. Locally, they offer so many services and wraparound services, and it's not a coincidence that the recidivism rate is in the 8% range. And so when we offer those services and we give people the tools they need in the toolbox, they're going to show up and they're much less likely to reoffend. And I think that's a win-win across the board.
Yeah, you know, and I applaud all the efforts that Attorney Bell is making in St. Louis County. You know, it's like if your kid is making bad grades and all you do is you beat him every day he comes home, instead of sitting down and saying, hey, what's wrong? Do you need a tutor? Oh, you're dyslexic. Let's get you some help with that. And so a lot of people frown at that approach because they're like, why are you rewarding people who are coming to jail? But that's not, we have to start getting to the why. We have tried incarcerating people, incarcerating our way out of problems, and it doesn't work. You know, that's why we have so many people in prison, so many people who are repeat offenders. In Harris County, Texas, our largest mental health facility in the state of Texas rests right here. It's our county jail. And it costs 87 cents to monitor someone while they're out on release, but the healthy person incarcerated costs $87. And so it's just smarter, it makes us safer, and it's cheaper.
From both of your perspectives, what does a cash-free system look like?
I think it looks like kind of what we both described. You know, there has to be some assessment tool. I'm not a fan of assessment tools that take prior criminal history into account. If we're going to say our system is broken and Black and brown people and poor have pled guilty to perhaps offenses they didn't commit, then I don't support a tool, that's what we call an assessment tool, that looks into the convictions. Because the example I gave to start off, where I had my case dismissed and Bell took a conviction, you know, that could be held against him later on. So we need to have a more holistic tool that looks at a person's full picture, and then it's given to the judge and to the DA to help assess proper conditions to ensure a person's return to court. Right now in Harris County Jail, over 80% of the people are Black and brown. And I always ask, where are all the white people? You know, and the answer is they have funds and they've already gone home. So only the poorest people are left. And then you'll hear the argument, well, it's not about race. It's not about race. But okay, well, let's look a little deeper and break down how wealth is distributed in America. And it's automatically a race issue. I mean, if we went and changed college admissions to we only let the fastest and the best basketball players in, then your university is full of Black people, then they'd be like, oh, wait a minute, this is discriminatory. No, it's just about fastest and tallest, you know? So yeah, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And, you know, I would say we have to start from the premise that no system that we create is perfect. And I'm a God-fearing person, so there's nothing on this earth that's going to be perfect. And I think to the judge's point, we have to look at risk-based systems. And those won't be perfect, but they'll at least get us away from the cash incentives, which we know don't work. Essentially, what we see is that the murderer with means is able to purchase their freedom, and the drug user, who's not a threat to anyone, can't pay the $500,000 or the $1,000 bond. And last I checked, people with drug issues often have money issues. And so they end up losing their jobs. They end up losing their housing. A single parent loses their children. And these all correlate with higher crime rates. So the thing that we're trying to avoid is exactly the path that we're walking down when we continue to lock people up, particularly when money is the reason. And so I think that just in our juvenile systems here, we don't use a cash bail system. We use a risk-based system. We look at whether that individual is a threat to themselves or the community. We look at whether that individual is a flight risk. We look at the severity of the charges. And if we determine that those factors warrant that individual staying in jail, then that individual should stay in jail. But if they're not a threat, if they're not a risk flight, why are we keeping them? And so I think we just have to reframe this issue. And I think that the law and order crowd, which whatever that means, have to look at the fact that 76% of individuals who come in contact with the justice system are in need of some type of substance use treatment or mental health care, and only 17% of inmates are getting that type of treatment. So how are we helping them by keeping them in jail? Again, we're exacerbating the problem. We're making it worse, and the research shows that they are more likely to commit another offense and a violent offense the longer we keep them in jail.
That leads me to my next question. In what places have programs to end bail money been successful, or is programs similar to that have been successful?
We've seen places like California, Maryland, DC. These are fairly new policy changes, and so there's criticisms of all of them, things that they can do better, but I would still argue that it is better than the alternative, and we have to start going down that path of change and recognizing, but also just following policies that work. Mm-hmm. And when we know that a policy doesn't work, and as the judge mentioned earlier, we have a large enough case study to show that this war on drugs, this cash bail system does not keep us safer. Our recidivism rates continue across the country to go over 80%. And so we have to, and we can look at systems that give the support that individuals need, and we see significantly lower recidivism rates and all the ancillary collateral consequences that come with it.
Judge Jordan, did you have anything to add to that?
Oh, no. I mean, he broke it down. He broke it down very well. And that's what people have to understand. This is new. The other system has been around for hundreds of years. Mm-hmm. And in Harris County, they found that tens of thousands of people's constitutional rights have been violated, and not one person ever complained about that. And so give us some time to get it right. And if we had all people at the table working together, like here in Harris County, for one point, we did have everybody, then people split, but you need the DA, you need the sheriff, the local police chief, the judges. You need to have all those people in the room talking about what they see from their sight picture, from their angle, and then come together and then address issues. But as long as you have people sharpshooting, the DA talking bad about everything you do, the sheriff not cooperating, then it's always going to be a system of chaos.
From your perspective, or your experience actually, on average, if a unconvicted person doesn't have bail money, how long could he or she expect it to be in there? What's the average?
When felonies and misdemeanors carry a different time frame, but I mean, a felony case, you can sit in there at least a year, at least. In Harris County, waiting on your case to come around. In Harris County, the maximum punishment range on a misdemeanor is going to be 1 year. You get 3 for 1, so you can sit for 4 months. But those are things that happen, and I'm seeing these questions pop up on the side. Mm-hmm. And if I can respond to one really quick, the way that
Sure.
found that people's constitutional rights have been violated because they never received due process. Their hearings would last about 30 seconds. They would say, Darrell Jordan, come on up. You're charged with XYZ offense. Don't say a word. Okay, your bail is set at $2,000. And then like, wait, judge, I need to say something. Okay, now your bail is $3,000. And so then that would be that. And then they also found an equal protection clause violation, because if that same situation that what I gave with me and Bell, both in jail, and the only reason he is there is because of money, they found that violated the equal protection clause of the Constitution. So those were the two issues that allowed us to win that case. And these group of people are going around the country suing everybody. And so counties need to wake up and change before they come get hit. Harris County spent over $13 million defending that lawsuit.
Wow.
And if I could also interject, if that's okay, Candace.
Sure.
You know, I think that, you know, some of the things that we've done in our office that help, because I think some of this we need to address on the front end before we even get to bail, I should say. But prior to me, my predecessor, whatever type of charge it was, they issued warrants. So that means an individual is going to see the inside of a jail. So what we did was with C, D, and E felonies, which are our low level and generally our nonviolent felonies, we instructed officers and the police departments to only issue summons. So they get a ticket and they come and they come to court and deal with that matter. And also our change in our policy with respect to small amounts of drugs. We issue summons on those, and for marijuana and smaller amounts, we are sending those individuals, we're either not charging if it's marijuana, or if we suspect that there's a drug issue, we send them to our diversion program. And that leads to a couple of questions that I see, and I'll do this real quick, Candace. Because there's a couple questions about when someone is incarcerated, increases the likelihood.
Yeah, I was going to get to the questions in about 2 minutes. Sure.
Okay. I'll just wait. But I think we need to look at some of the systems that we're putting in place that decrease, I should say, the likelihood of individuals having to go into jail in the first place. Because to the judge's point about being in there for a year, the statistics show that just being in there for a few days increases the likelihood that you're going to be back. And so we need systems that decrease the likelihood that people are going to be caught back up in the cycle of incarceration.
I'm going to go thank you both for that feedback and for those answers. We do have a lot of questions. We have about 15 minutes to get them in, so I'm going to try my best to get some of those in for you all. And some of them have been answered during the course of this discussion. So we have a question from Amber Sherman. Can we hear more details on how you got rid of bail to get better insight on how to do it there? So hold on, let me see. Amber, I'm not sure who that question is directed to.
I mean, I can talk about what we did here in Harris County.
Sure.
Here, it required a 2/3 vote amongst the judiciary to change our rules. And so we changed it. We came up with carve-outs. And so if you're not a carve-out, you are automatically given a PR bond with no conditions. The carve-outs are DWI second. Within 5 years, you stay and you're given an interlock device. And again, you can't dismiss it costs 87 cents to monitor someone pre-trial, $87 a day for a healthy person. And most people come with mental health and other kind of health issues. And so our county absorbs the cost of those devices. So, where an interlock device may cost $300, that's still cheaper than keeping somebody in jail for 8-9 months and paying, maybe $100 a day for them to be there. And so we changed those rules and we did away with it. And so a lot of times people come down on the DA, the police officers, and everybody else, but you need to look at your judges. You look at your judges. The judges have that authority to do away with the system and actually have one that's fair for all people. People marching and doing all this stuff a couple of weeks ago, but this is something the judiciary and people in the system should have been addressing hundreds of years ago, because I get mad when people call me a criminal justice reformer, and I tell them, no, I'm following the law. I'm following the Constitution. There's nothing written in the Constitution today that's unequal, but when it comes to us, we apply it unequally. So if your jails are filled with people that match the population of your county and everything else like that, and it's fair, then that's one system. But when you have a system based on money and connections and people getting out, that's wrong. And we have to call it out.
Yeah. And with our office, what we did, and fortunately as the prosecutor, I don't have to get a board to approve our policy. So on day one, we implemented our internal changes with respect to cash bail. And then what we did was we started prior to me taking office and being sworn in, we met with the judges and the judiciary, because Judge Jordan is right. It does a big roadblock oftentimes are the judges and their willingness to do it. We had a young lady when I was coming into office who was sitting in jail for a drug possession on a $20,000 bond. And so not only did I think it was important for us to change those policies on day one, but I think prosecutors can be proactive. We don't have to wait for defense counsel to identify a problem if we already know about it. And we'll do that. If we see someone that's sitting in jail for a reason that they shouldn't, our prosecutors are instructed to reach out to defense counsel and make them aware of it. And I'll add one thing though, the biggest impact is going to come from legislation. If I had a judge like Judge Jordan, I couldn't tell you all the things that I could do. We've done a lot of good things, but we could do a lot more if we had a bench full of Judge Jordans. But the problem is we don't. We have a lot of judges who are not, and I'll say reform-minded, and that's why it's going to take that legislation. And so we have to get our judiciary on board. We have to get our prosecutors and prosecutors associations on board. We also have to get our law enforcement community on board as well, and bring that full influence to bear so that we can get the laws changed and really see long-term and impactful positive change, if you will.
There's a question from Alex Hensley. Attorney Bell, can you speak more about the data you presented about when someone is incarcerated and increases the likelihood that they will return with another charge? What are the reasonings for that?
The reasonings for it, I mean, I think there's a lot of things that we know. If the research shows us that an individual with a lack of job opportunities is more likely to commit a crime. Not all, but more likely. A person without access to quality education is more likely to commit crime. And so the data is clear. When you put someone in jail, for example, they are more likely to reoffend, and that data has been consistent. Short jail stays increase the likelihood of someone reoffending. And when we look at our recidivism rates, which are 83%-ish nationally, I think we see that we can't incarcerate or prosecute our way out of these problems. We have to look at alternatives. And to me, definition of reform-minded judges or prosecutors are individuals who recognize that there are more tools in the tool belt aside from just incarceration. There's some people we know that they've committed serious violent crimes. They need to be sat down. But there's a lot of people who need help. They just need treatment, and giving them that treatment decreases the likelihood that they're going to reoffend. And one thing that I'll say, and this is a short, this data that I'm about to give you is short. Since I've been in office, we have referred somewhere around 1,000 people in the first 6 months, we referred about 1,000 people through our diversion programs, and not one of them reoffended. Now, we know that that's going to change, but if that's an early indication of the direction that we're going, that means it's going to be significantly lower than our national and regional statistics or data. And so I think, it's just clear, when we give people the support that they need, they're less likely to reoffend. That makes us all safer, it's cheaper, and it helps everyone.
Thank you. We have a question from creative artist Yvonne. Is the justice system using bond monies to fund courts? How does bond money work?
No, bond money is simply a transfer of wealth from poor communities into rich communities. Bond companies are backed by insurance companies like AIG and others. So this is basically a transfer of the little bit of wealth that we do have, if you can even call it wealth. There you know, it drives me crazy when I see news articles. Judge gives low bond, 50,000 or 70,000, and the studies show that the average person in America doesn't have $400 emergency money. So when you give somebody a $50,000 bond and they have to pay $5 to get out, see, when we process these things, when we look at stuff, you know, we look at how much money we're making. I speak for myself. I'm looking at how much money I'm making. Then I see 5,000. I'm like, okay, well, shoot, that ain't a lot. But everybody is not me. Everybody is not me. You know, I was blessed to have an experience in life. Bell, I used to go to Mizzou football games, but me and my brothers, we would be there to dig in the trash and get cans out because we got a nickel for every can. And so that's my background: homeless shelters, child abuse shelters. And so I know what it's like to be poor, but some people forget or have never experienced it. And so they think everybody has $2,000 in the bank. So we have to fix our system and make our criminal justice system where everybody walks in the door and they can say, look, I know I did it, so I'm gonna be treated justly. Or they can say, look, I know I didn't do it and I know I'm gonna have a fair shot. And part of that reform is some of the things that Bell mentioned. We changed and adopted cite and release. So now we give citations for low-level offenses. We did away with court-appointed lawyers where judges who are getting campaign contributions, just came out in the New York Times, were appointing all their buddies to get cases. We gave that to a third party called Managed Assigned Counsel. We have open hours court where you can miss court 2 times and call and reschedule your case. As a judge, I can go to work when I want to and leave when I want to. How am I gonna lock people up for being 5 minutes late to court? But those are types of things that happen all around our country every single day, and nobody complains because a lot of people, even people who look like us, say, well, if you didn't do anything wrong, you wouldn't be there. But we all know, and even watching these videos that are coming out, that's not true.
Okay, it's 12:09, so we have time for literally one more question, and then we have to end. And I think this is a good question to end on a good note. It comes from Sarah G, and she asks, how does an average citizen play a role in getting bail money ended?
The average citizen, I mean, everybody has power. We have to remember that we are all empowered. If you have a Facebook page, somebody is voting somewhere.
Yeah.
And somebody doesn't want you posting on Facebook or gathering people. A guy once told me the 2 greatest sources of power: organized money, organized people. So get people together and educate them on the dangers of money bail. Reach out to the Civil Rights Corps. I put the link over here on the side. Reach out to them and let them know what's going on in your community. They will come down. They go to their webpage and look at all the people they've sued. Get some lawyers there. And I got, you know, I had to go off on the black lawyers here in Houston, and even I had to go look in the mirror. Why did it take some white boy from New York to come down here and sue us before we stood up for the people who were getting harmed that looked like us? A lot of us have a me and mines, and I say mines, me and mines mentality. That means, well, me and my family are fine. I'm not worried about anybody else. But people of color, especially lawyers who have the knowledge and power, can't use all of their money for nice cars and houses and tailored clothes. We need to get back to the civil rights and fighting for other people who are oppressed. And so that's why I'm just like eternally grateful just to even be on this panel with Mr. Bell. He came in kicking people out of office. They messing with him all the time on having a Suburban, and the other guy had 8 Suburbans. You know, I follow all your stuff, man. You know, and so, but it takes people of courage. It takes people of courage. People bash me, come after me, do all kind of stuff. But what good is it for me to get the bench when only thing I do is take the whip from the last person and start beating everybody else? People like us who get in the office can't forget where we came from. But too many times we get to the table and we refuse to say anything because we don't want to upset the oppressors at the table. But then we go back to our communities and make everybody stand up when we walk in the room.
And I'll just build on that, and I'll make it quick. I think it's just important to be concerned citizens, and I think that's defined by, or one of the elements of being a concerned citizen is being an educated citizen, to know what these issues are, because Judge Jordan is right. When you have people like us that are changing the system, that those establishment forces are going to resist. There are individuals and organizations who have made a living, a career off the establishment that we see, or the status quo, I should say. They've made a living off of it. So when you start taking food off their tables, when you start emptying out the jails in St. Louis County, we've reduced the jail population by 30%. When you start doing those kind of things, those wolves come out because you're messing with their money, right? And so I think that it's important that not only are you educated and staying on top of these issues, but when you see those wolves coming out, know that we need our allies in the community as well. And getting on social media, talking to your friends, having these questions, having these conversations, because at the end of the day, the kind of policies that we are advocating for are common sense. We're not talking about anything that gives anyone an advantage. We're saying just treat people fairly. When you look out on the streets and you see people protesting, they're not saying treat us better, treat us better. They're saying just treat us fairly. That's all we're asking. And when we look at the data and we see what the data shows with respect to the cash bail system, it is clear that the cash bail system does not work. And these policy reforms that myself, Judge Jordan, and many across the country are advocating for do work. And so we need that support. We need that support on a grassroots level to spread that word, to help change the hearts and minds of those people who just don't know. And so I think that's important, in addition to what Judge Jordan said as well.
Thank you both. I hate that we do not have enough time to go over everything, because I think I speak for the people who are in this room, that this was a really great panel. And on behalf of Shelby County and the Urban League affiliates, thank you both so much for giving your time today. I see you all left contact information as well for the attendees, so thank you. For those in this session, this is recorded, so it will be available. And do not forget to tune in for our keynote speaker, Mr. Mark Morial, who will be on at 1 o'clock, President Mark Morial from the National Urban League. And thank you, gentlemen, again.
Thank you all. Have a great day.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you.